hardscape, meaning everything but the plants, was put in when this visitor center went in. So the visitor center was designed, conceived, and built between 1978 and 1980. And anybody who's dug anywhere in this area knows that as soon as you dig in the ground here, you come up with lots of unconsolidated chert rock, chert nodules mostly, which is what all of this rock is. So these terraces were put in when this building went in. And over the years, there's a lot of change that's happened in these terraces, but the chert rock is really our point of differentiation, the thing that other people don't have that we do have because we live here on the mounds. The chert comes from the top of the mounds. Of course, we're on the east mound, we're on the south slope of the east mound. So the top of the mounds were covered with chert, and it's just eroded downhill over these many, many years. I'm really lucky to have them. It's a wonderful rock to work with. It's I think, a beautiful rock for flowers, and it allows us to have these different plant communities because we have the rocks and because they're so well drained. At the top of the hill, when Joe and I started, this was all grass. It was grass here, it was grass next to the building, and this wildflower or prairie garden was started in 1998 is when the first prep of the hill began. So 98 and 99 prep years, most of 2000. In the fall of 2000, right? 2000 is when it was planted, all planted by seed. So this is, this whole garden is about seed management. And Drew's been helping me with collecting some seeds. Put in the seed you want, take out the seed you don't want, and over time it becomes this beautiful wildflower garden, which I find incredibly delightful, and just the smell alone is so wonderful. So you've noticed that the third terrace has been seeded to the wildflower garden, keeping the wildflowers, the prairie flowers, out of the rock garden is a continual process. Sometimes some get going, but I really want the seed because I don't have enough of it or feel I have enough of it in this garden. So like this purplish plant right here is really a prairie plant, but I'm gonna let it continue to grow here, collect the seed from it in the fall, not let it, hopefully, fall in this garden, put it back up in here, and just continue to plow it back in, and that's basically how it works. On the other side of the creek, as you go up toward the parking lot, everything up there is new because when we started, the parking lot was gravel and we really wanted to pave the parking lot. As a result of that paving project, the huge rock garden that backs the rain garden and part of the parking lot, that's where those rocks came from. So when they dug down to put the parking lot in, all of those rocks came in. So then we were able to sort of mimic what's going on here in that area. So we used them in that garden we call quartzite. The names are funny. I didn't do it. But I had a guide who said, this is what we got to call it. So this is what we call it. So that garden, then at the entrance, also those rocks came from this project. We do have all natural butterfly gardens. So those are gardens that can support the butterfly from the time they lay the egg until the time it flies away and lays some more eggs. We have many of those here. There is a sign which describes what a butterfly garden is at our rain garden. The other thing that people will try to tell you, the tall tale, is that, oh, the garden just takes care of itself. You just put it in, you put the seed in, and the garden takes care of itself. Now this represents thousands of hours of manual labor. So over the last 20 some years. So it is a tremendous amount of work. Some people ask me, what kind of garden can I put in that's really easy and it's really no work? There is no garden.
Grass.
Yeah, right. A xeriscape.
Rock garden?
A xeriscape, right?
Succulents.
Right. Yeah.
No, those things are
Fakies.
horrible. They died.
I love fakies. Great.
I think that's one.
I use fakies a lot in the winter.
Cacti.
They're awesome. So there really isn't. It's so much work. But if a person really is passionate about it, that's really the only way. If you're not passionate about it, you might as well not even get in the game. It's far too much work. And you know how it is in Wisconsin. By July 4th, we're like so done with summer, like done. Bring on winter. Hate bugs. Don't want to touch them. So really, it's only for people who find their zen in weeding, like me. Strange people like me. These are rock gardens.
Perennial gardens?
Yep, they're all perennial gardens. We do some annuals, as you know. That's what Jesse and Drew water in the morning. I just do that for a little punch here and there. It seems like fits with tourism. But these are all perennial gardens, so you can just call them perennial gardens. This is a prairie garden or a wildflower garden. It's not a prairie, you know, it's not big enough for that, but it's a prairie garden. We have a savanna garden, which is more like a prairie garden, but tends towards shade. That's down below the third terrace below the visitor center. But perennial is really the way to go.
Gotcha.
They're perennial gardens.
What is the difference between a savanna and a prairie?
They're really, savanna is what they call the areas that were in the shaded areas under the oaks. So basically, all of this, according to the original surveys, when Wisconsin was platted out, they sent people out to establish corners for township and range lines. And at that corner, they made a visual inspection of the area. So they stood at what they were going to consider the new township and range line. They looked around and they said, okay, this is what you see. These are the trees. These are the plants. And they called all of this savanna. So all of this was open, what you would consider open wildflower or prairie, tall grass and short grass areas with the flowers, punctuated by groups of oaks. Groups of oaks, groups of oaks, groups of oaks. And the plants that can handle more shade and tend to move toward the oaks are quote unquote savanna plants. So there you go.
Prairies are usually more sun, the prairie flowers.
All sun.
Yeah.
All sun.
Prairie
100.
and the oak tree shade is a
Yep.
savanna.
Too many signs are too many signs. You know, to me, it's just be here, be in the moment, look at the flowers, soak it all in, take a picture of your family, but there is some interpretation. And of course, this sign is an example of it. So throughout the area, we have some signs which at least give people a little bit of an understanding of who we are and what we are. We're all of us, most of us here, I think we all live in the area, are lucky enough to live in the Driftless, one of the most beautiful areas, in my opinion, in the state, if not in the entire Midwest. And, you know, the old boredom in paradise, right? People work at Yosemite and they're like, yeah, boring, saw it, done it. Grand Canyon, And so we take it so for granted that we live in this incredible area. But because this is the Driftless, that's why we have the cave. And of course, talking about how the surface and the subsurface are related is a whole nother deep conversation. But the chert rock that are here are part of what makes this area unique, and it's why the mounds are even here at all, because we live in such an ancient, ancient, ancient landscape, completely different from going out to California, for instance, where the geology is so young compared to us. It makes it exciting, and it's, you know, whoa, you look at it and you're like, oh, wow, is that gonna move? Whereas you're here and you're like, stable, we're good. So we live in this ancient, ancient landscape, but as a result, we have, you know, this cave, which really is the jewel of our area. So we have some signs throughout. I did want to just take a short walk to see the butterfly garden sign so that you know where to tell people who ask. That it's not an enclosure. All of our butterfly gardens are naturalized. We're doing what we can to help the butterfly population, especially the monarch population, which most of you know has, you know, really gone up and down, has had some serious crashes. So, you know, we're doing what we can, and we certainly provide them enough space to roam here. this whole area that's in here is rain gardens. It's a really highly engineered garden so that it has just the right drainage properties so that when this parking lot went in, the idea was that half of the water, more than half actually, comes down and drains into here so that this is the way of storing whatever chemies might be coming off the parking lot from the cars, etc., and filtering that water. This garden does that. There's another large rain garden. There's a split rail fence down at the bottom there that you might see. So the other half of the parking lot drains into that rain garden. So we have two big catchment basins that catch the water that runs off of this parking lot and helps to filter it before it runs out and goes into the creek. And so they're called rain gardens for obvious reasons. They're really it's really more accurately a catchment basin, but they really provide an awesome opportunity to put in these kind of wildflower type plants again. And they just grow marvelously in these gardens, and you can really sort of tailor it and custom it to what you want. So if you want more of the plants that butterflies need, you can put them in. But they're really fairly low maintenance, which is hard for me to say because I always tell people, no, don't get into this. They're really fairly low maintenance, and I think really beautiful. And I know that the state has really been pushing these catchment basins whenever a new neighborhood goes in, depending on the size of your house and where your house is located. And I know people are sometimes reluctant, but I wouldn't be. They're really great. And oftentimes, if the catchment basin is big enough and wet enough, you get waterfowl, you get lots of frogs, you get all kinds of wildlife will be drawn to these. Being on the mound as we are, and even though you're not feeling it standing here, but we really are, we're on the slope coming down the southern mound. We're very well drained here for the most part. So I really don't get water sitting at all in here. Which was a little bit of a surprise to me because several of the plants which were prescribed on the list of plants they want you to put in these, 3 or 4 of them like wet feet. And it's, they've all disappeared because there is no water mostly ever sitting in here. Like this guy right here?
Yes.
This is Joe Pieweed, Victoria macrophylla. It's a beauty, isn't it? You know how it is, right? When I taught, I said you gotta say it 100 times, you gotta write it 100 times, you gotta look at it 100 times. Then you'll memorize it. That's how it works. I have several favorites. I have to narrow it down to the domain and to the type of garden. But I do have some favorites. In the prairie garden, I am particularly fond of Ruffliatris and Asclepias tuberosa, the orange butterfly weed I love so much. And Ruffliatris is about to bloom. It's not blooming yet. The regular Liatris, which I'm not downgrading by calling it regular, but the normal Liatris is blooming. It's the spike with the sort of the purple spikes that come up. There's another variation of that plant where instead of the spike all blooming at one time, there's individual little balls. They're just little purple balls all the way up and down. Love it.